Welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Luke from Astro Awakening. In this video, I'm going to briefly touch on the Mercury retrograde that is about to go down. This is going to be a short little video just giving you my perspective on Mercury retrograde. I'm going to be doing a full video on the upcoming solar eclipse and just breaking down all the different energetics of it. And in some ways, this Mercury retrograde that we're about to go into is all about the solar eclipse because it's happening in the same sign as the eclipse. Mercury's already been past the degree of the eclipse, which is 19 degrees of Aries. It's currently stationing at 27 degrees of Aries. It's going to go back to 15 degrees of Aries. So it's going to cover that eclipse degree. Well, now it's already once. It's going to cover in retrograde twice and then in direct motion the third time. The interesting thing that I wanted to sort of really start this video off with, though, which is sort of came out of nowhere and disappeared to the same place quickly, especially if you don't watch the news, you only get the highlights sort of stuff, is the Baltimore Bridge collapse. And there's a lot of people putting their perspectives and information out there and, the astrology of it and all of those types of things. I wanted to sort of just touch on it briefly. When these types of things happen, you've got to learn to look at them symbolically. What do they symbolize, right? Now, take away from the fact of was it an accident? Was it intentional? Was it a controlled demolition? What the actual was going on? There's a lot of good content on those perspectives out there on the internet. I've seen videos of what it looks like being hit in one pylon and then where it broke and how it collapsed. It was actually detonated. And you can see like little flashes going off where, they probably use the same type of detonation material that they use to bring down those two in 11.9. You know what I'm talking about. The YouTube algorithm at the moment is clamped down tight on all these types of words and things. So we've got to be very mindful. So yeah, the fact that it was 1:30 or 1:30 in the morning or something like that, people weren't on the bridge. Like a ship appears to, when you watch that back in sort of sped up motion, it appears to just be turning towards that pylon. And even, a ship without its supposed navigational system is still being able to control. So, out of that aside, what is the symbolism of this bridge collapse? I want to focus on what a bridge is. I want to look at the name of that bridge because that has a lot of significance, as well as a ship. What does a ship represent too? So a bridge is something that connects two places. Okay, so we use a bridge to get from one place to the other. It can be across water, across land, over a road, wherever. We're trying to get from one side to the other, right? So the symbolism of a bridge is, something that takes us from one place and puts us in a new place and spans across whatever obstacle, challenge, difficulty, or space of time might be in the way. So bridge helps us get to those points. The second thing is the bridge was built in March, or opened at least in March the 23rd, so Aries season, in 1977. And the lunar nodes, as you can see here, at that time were North Node Libra, South Node Aries. So the bridge actually opened just about a month shy of a solar eclipse in Aries. Okay, so it was a South Node solar eclipse in Aries in April of 1977. And this bridge opened about 3 or 4 weeks before that eclipse. Now, fast forward to when the bridge came down, 26th of March, 2024, now the nodal axis, South Node Libra, North Node Aries. So it's like what's known as a nodal opposition. So interesting thing about Libra, the symbol for Libra pretty much looks like a bridge. And if you think about Libra intrinsically, what it represents, which is a relationship, Libra's association with the seventh house being other people, personal relationships, partnerships, open enemies, that type of thing. Well, what is a relationship? Okay, there's that word again. It's a relationship. A relationship is a vessel that unites two people, brings two people together. So Libra is also the symbol of a bridge. What is the bridge that connects two people? Well, the bridge that connects two people is their relationship, right? You see how this symbolism plays out? So it's really interesting focusing on this bridge collapse at this moment. Now, the moon on the day of the collapse was passing across the south node, really activating that south node, which is the north node in the birth chart of the opening of the bridge. So again, it's like this sort of cycle phase coming to an end. Interesting too that when this happened, Mars was at when the bridge was hit, Mars was at 2 degrees of Pisces. When the bridge was open, Mars was at 2 degrees of Pisces. So it was an exact Mars return, almost exact, definitely by degree, not quite by minutes. Mars returns, and into the natal chart or the birth chart of the bridge, Mars had its return to that point, and Mars rules over accidents, okay, or supposed accidents or attacks. Anything of that nature are definitely Mars ruled. The Pisces component here, well, that's the water, right? So an attack from water. And this theme is probably going to be something that we're going to see more of, especially around the eclipse time and moving forward. So again, the symbolism is a bit like, okay, there's something going on here. Now let's look at a ship. Okay, ship, a vessel, right? Well, the ship is in the water and it's a vessel for the water. Our legal system is maritime admiralty law, the law of the ocean. So the ship is almost a symbol of that law as well. It's like the law running into the bridge, collapsing the bridge. There's something interesting about the symbolism here associated to the legal perspective of what that bridge represents, connecting two locations and bringing them together. But this isn't about building a bridge. This is about disconnecting, collapsing, and taking apart a bridge. So what was the bridge? The bridge was the Francis Scott Key Bridge, also known as the Key Bridge. So it's a key. It's a very interesting key, that bridge. What key does it open? What key does it unlock? Well, when you look at Francis Scott Key, excuse me, the bridge was named after. He was the person that wrote the Star Spangled Banner. Star Spangled Banner, the American or United States of America's national anthem. And again, what is that a symbol of? That's a symbol of the ideology behind America, right? So we also know, based on past videos and stuff that you've probably come across, is that America has been going through their Pluto return. And that's almost coming to its end. By about September through to November, Pluto will be back into Capricorn for its final transition of Capricorn for our lifetime. And America was founded with Pluto in Capricorn. So, it's like this final sort of death and rebirth of the ideology of America, at least the first phase of America. So what I look at this symbolism of the Baltimore Bridge collapse is it's taking that bridge, disconnecting from the old ideology of the United States of America. Now you might be thinking, well, we're not living in America, it doesn't really affect us. Well, the ideology behind the United States of America is pretty much Western ideology in general. So this could be then spread across the whole of the Western world, and Western ideology is of sort of, democracy and freedom and liberation and, capitalism and those types of things. So irrespective who did it, how they did it, what was behind it, was, all the different conspiracies, let's just look at the symbolism. A bridge represents something that connects two things. It's been removed. So something that's being removed, connecting two things. It was named after the guy that wrote this Star Spangled Banner. So it's the ideology that's being taken apart or at least disconnected. And the ship is a symbol of law that we currently live in, especially in Western culture and Western society, maritime admiralty law. Look into it, the law of the ocean. We're all lost souls at sea. They claim ownership of us at birth and, create this legal fiction. And the whole system is this based on this idea that we're lost at sea. We're lost. So that Baltimore Bridge happening now. Where was Mercury at the time of this? Mercury is 24 degrees of Aries and conjunct what's known as Eris. Eris is the goddess of chaos and discord. Okay, so that symbolism there, I was like, caught my eye. I'm like, oh, Mercury's at 24 degrees of Aries. Now, let's bring it to, where we're at right now. So this is the chart for right now. If I move forward a few hours, we'll get the actual timing of the Mercury retrograde. We're watching this little purple guy down here, 27 degrees of Aries, and I'm moving forward an hour at a time. We're waiting for him to turn red, which is there. So that's roughly about 9 a.m. tomorrow morning here, Australian Eastern Standard Time. April Fool's Day for most people around the world. Australia, we're a little bit ahead of everyone. We're a bit advanced. um, so Mercury's going to station at 27 degrees of Aries. It's going to move all the way back to the 15th degree of Aries, okay, through retrograde motion. I'll talk briefly about how to understand Mercury retrogrades really quickly so that you're not sort of like confused as to what this might mean, or if the actual planet Mercury is doing this to us and fucking shit up for us. But if we go back to there, that's the 26th of April. Let's get precise. Let's get Virgo precise. So now I'm just backing it up that moment and waiting to it. I'm just going backwards in time now. Okay, there. So the 25th of April at about 7 p.m. in the evening, which is a Thursday, Mercury will station direct at 15 degrees of Aries. So if you're following along at home and you have your birth chart, you want to check whereabouts in your birth chart you have 27 to 15 degrees or 15 to 27 degrees of Aries. What house is that in? Mercury is going to be spending some time there. Usually he spends about 3 weeks in each sign. Mercury will spend about 2 months in Aries. So 2 months in that part of your chart. So what's the symbolism of Mercury retrograde? Correlation or correspondence is how we want to look at this. That one of the Hermetic laws, right? The 7 Hermetic principles. One of the 7 Hermetic principles, the law of correspondence, right? Things in like that have a certain frequency, vibrational frequency, tend to express themselves similarly. So, for whatever reason, the light in the sky, the wandering star that has been modernly termed the planet Mercury, again, not this Mercury, but the light corresponds to the frequency of the expression of energy or consciousness that we have throughout history termed mercurial, hermetic, from that perspective. So, what does that represent? Mercury rules over the mind, perception, thoughts, thinking, communication, transportation, navigation. These are all things of the mercurial nature. He's known as the god of speed because he spends 88 days to go right around the sun. He's the fastest of the planets, excluding the luminaries. Obviously, the moon is a bit quicker. But the moon is not going around the sun. The other planets are going around the sun. So, mind, how we think, right? So when you look in your natal chart, you look to your Mercury, you're looking to the qualities of the Mercury, the sign placement, the house placement, the aspects that it makes, and it helps to understand how you think, how your mind works, and how perception it works for you, and also then your style of communicating. So, I have a friend, you might know him, David the Medium. He has Mercury in Pisces, I'm fairly certain, and in the 8th house. So his perception, he's able to have 2 aspects of his mind, one here in the rational reasoning logical world and one also in the spirit world. So he has a connection to that because Pisces, his Mercury in Pisces, the quality of his mind is to perceive into the Pisces frequency, and Pisces rules the spiritual realms, right? So the dreamscape, the sort of the land beyond the real, the unseen, the non-physical, right? So that just gives you a bit of an understanding of what Mercury represents, what it corresponds to. Is the planet Mercury in the sky causing this to be this way? No, it's corresponding, right? Think of the cosmic clock in the sky as a clock, right? It is the hand that's the minute hand, is it causing minutes? No, time is just happening. Time is an expression of, linear sort of action of space and time and things happening in, sequence, if you like. But the clock isn't time, the clock tells us time. The cosmic clock, right? It's helping us understand the unfoldment of the energetics of the universe, which we then experience as consciousness, subconsciousness, unconsciousness. So we understand symbolically what they correspond to. We can understand what the experiences we're likely to go through. When the planet that corresponds to mind, perception, thought, communication, transportation, navigations, from our perspective, perception rules reality, perspective is everything, appears to stop, halt, go backwards, and move back through a particular part of the sky, we're going to review, revise, rethink, reorder, retrograde that quality. And that quality just so happens to represent our mind and our perception. So therefore, we can start to sort of see things differently. We might get a new point of view open up for us. We might be in deep reflection. We're thinking about things that have happened. Now, it's in the sign of Aries, and Aries quality is action orientated. This is Mars' domain, and Mars is like, let's do it. Let's fucking get shit done, right? So then the mind in this sign of impulse, instinct, action, let's go, now moving in a reverse retrograde motion, it might mean that it's time for pause, right? Sometimes the best course of action is no action. Mercury retrograding in the sign of action, it might be best just to sort of deeply reflect on the type of action. Now, more importantly than action, what about our reaction? Okay, so as the theme of this Mercury retrograde, I feel is going to be is how are we choosing to react? And that's a pretty intense sort of way to look at it because people might be just thinking, well, they're reacting, of course, but there is a choice there. Whether we're conscious of that choice or not, there is a choice of how we're reacting. And when you get really good at creating space for that choice to open up, you can choose how you react. And instead of becoming a reaction, it becomes a response. And between the stimulation and the response is a choice. This Mercury retrograde is going to illuminate that, right? When you have a different awareness, when you're starting to see the world differently, when you're awakening your consciousness, becoming more self-aware, you also have to, have responsibility to sort of be mindful of your instincts, your impulse, your reaction, your subconscious sort of responses, because sometimes they might be beneficial. They might be detrimental to life. They might continue to keep co-creating a certain reality or challenge for you that's not necessarily what you want. So this Mercury retrograde is a big horror, put on the brakes. Maybe if you don't know, if you're uncertain, if it's not clear, if there is an intense amount of energy, in other words, there's a bit of anger or frustration, or there's a bit of anxiousness, or there's a bit of impulse, right? Sometimes it's better just to pull back a little bit and pause and halt. Yeah, in that state, you've got to keep the wheels turning, so to speak. So you're not going to sort of like time out on life and go off on a spiritual sabbatical and go and sit under a big gum tree and eat mushrooms, smoke weed, and contemplate the universe and speak to God. You could. I mean, it's probably something I'm going to do. But you know what I mean? Like we've still got, we've still got obligations to meet. It's just that if we're off with haste, my dad used to say, more haste, less pace. In other words, when we're in a hurry to get something done, when we're impatient, we're more likely to either take action that's not aligned, or we're impulsive or reactive. And the next thing we've done something, and in hindsight, we go, maybe that wasn't the best thing to do or say. Okay, so Mercury retrograde now is sort of saying, okay, let's just put the brakes on this for a minute and think a bit before we react, right? Or at least if you feel the welling up of energy. Now, during this Mercury retrograde, at least the beginning phase of it, Mars, the ruler of Aries, is going to be in Pisces, moving into this conjunction with Saturn. Again, there'll be another video on the solar eclipse and the breakdown of that, and that's coming. But now, Mars in Pisces is acting and reacting and, responding from Pisces, which is emotional, aspect of life. Very emotional, very sensitive. And Pisces can go on from one pole to the other pole really quickly and easily. So from euphoric, like bliss, enlightened action to completely neurotic, completely, you know, uh, volatile, extreme volatility. You think about the emotions that are fueling the types of ways that we behave and act in this world. When you get to the really intense behaviors, the violence, the abusive type behaviors, the anger, and all those things, what is fueling those types of behaviors and actions? Emotions. So Pisces being the mutable sign associated with the ocean motions, the emotions, it's like, man, if there is certain events that potentially could fiery, impulsively, spontaneously erupt, very Aryan in quality, then we're looking to this Mars in Pisces as the type of fuel that's going to ignite that energy. Now, if you know a thing or two about reality and how it works and how those in control continue to maintain power and control across a whole populace of people, we all do the same thing, really. We all sort of go along thinking that, this is how we're supposed to live here. And even little things that we take for granted, for example, we're programmed to see a red light and we act on that and we stop, probably for our own benefit because it keeps us safe. But like we all just do that instinctively and subconsciously, like, well, we're taught from a young age, well, stop now. So, how do the people that are at the shadow sort of aspect of, the shady aspect of reality, how do they maintain power and control? Is they need energy to be able to do that. And when the populace direct their focus or attention in a particular place, or they emotionally respond a particular way, that's the type of energy that can be used as the medium to manifest the desired reality, so to speak. So if we come back now to your personal life, as we go through this Mercury retrograde, there might be a lot more impulsive, fiery, reactive, angry energy, assertive energy that's coming into the collective and more palpable than normal. And simmering below the surface might be a lot of unstable emotions. And certainly, too, if there are certain events that might necessarily be triggered, look at the bridge collapse. It's a symbol of, we're basically symbolizing now to the world because that was very well televised and it was like boom, 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 pumped out there into the collective, right? Even if you weren't watching the TV, which I don't watch the news, it was easy to like, whoa, like I think it was like not very long after it happened that I was like, wow, whoa, shit, what happened? So, so if certain events are going on around the world, when we look at the nodal axis at the moment, we've got the South Node in Libra, sign of peace, the North Node in Aries, the sign of war. So, yeah, there's this aspect of this with self and other, but also with peace and war, right? So, or at least the theater of war, the idea of it, so to speak, what could trigger escalation of conflict when move us into sort of wartime experiences? There's already some tension in the Middle East. There's tension with China and Taiwan. There's tension with the Ukraine and Russia. There's a lot of tension in the US, civil tension, political tension, but also geopolitical tension in the sense of like, what the hell are they fucking doing and who's running the place and what you can just blatantly see they're funneling so much of the American taxpayers' dollars into money laundering through the guise of, Ukraine war. So there's a lot of simmering tension that wouldn't take much to ignite and create a lot of conflict. So what's our part to play in this? And whether this is microcosm conflict within your own life in key relationships, right? Between you and others, you and your work, you and your loved ones, you and your family, you and yourself, right? And the types of relationships we have and the potential for a little bit of change, volatility going off, conflict erupting. What does the awakened wise person, the self-aware person do? Allows whatever happens to happen and takes a pause and a step back. And sometimes the best thing to do is nothing. It's just to nod and go, And maybe that's what we're being really challenged to do here is to, with this Mercury retrograde, pull back and be really wise with our choices of how we're choosing to respond. Okay. And there is responding, which would be most likely how most people would be like something happens. Well, fuck, someone says something, well, fuck you. Okay, cool. When you respond in kind, you become the very thing that you're, in opposition against. Sometimes we can then take it the other way and go really deep down and go to another place, and we can become the extreme victim. Oh, or we can become the full sort of violent, explosive fucking 10, like someone does something and we react with like the force of 10 atomic bombs, and it was just like someone didn't indicate when they were coming into our lane, like it's no big deal, but next thing we're fucking chasing them with like fucking baseball bats. Right? So there's that, or there's the third way, right, the middle path, which is to sort of take the high road and go, yeah, well, you know what, maybe they've got something going on in their life that I know nothing about, and normally they're a considerate person in this moment. They just, their mind was preoccupied and they didn't decide to indicate. So that's cool. I can totally understand. So my response then, based on that type of rationale, that moment to pause and reflect is to go, yeah, maybe it's just better to let it be, right? So taking that third way, the middle path, the high road, this Mercury retrograde in your life, this is a test. This eclipse brings Chiron into the picture. Now, remember that the bridge that came down was known as the Key Bridge, the Baltimore Key Bridge, because it was named after Francis Scott Key, the guy that wrote the Star Spangled Banner. Well, if you look into the chart for Chiron, Chiron is the only symbol of a planet that is literally shaped like a key. Okay. It's a green key too, and green's a symbol of heart chakra. It's like the heart has the key to open the way. Now, with Chiron, we get hurt and pain, right? We get a wound with Chiron, but we also get the opportunity to heal and to help. Okay, so very, very sort of polarizing, right? Look at the bridge that got taken down. There's that reality and there's that reality. So, maybe the bridge represents this ability to connect the two and now it's removed. So who's got to step into that place and hold that space to be able to be mindful of which way am I choosing here? It's not what happens. It's how you would choose to respond to what happens that counts. Because sometimes the hyenas gang up and they eat the lion cub, right? Sometimes that's what happens. In other words, sometimes in nature and in life and in this realm, sometimes fuck things happen. Sometimes people are hurt. Sometimes people die, right? Sometimes that's just the reality that we live within. It'd be lovely to live in a utopia where that would never be the case. But really, at this level of life where we're at, look at life. It's a cycle of birth, death, and rebirth and constant process of change. So, it's not what may happen. It's not what's happening in your life. It's not the volatility and the tension and the potential conflict. It's not what they did. It's not what they said. It's not any of that shit. It's not what happened to you in the past. It's not what might be happening to you now. It's none of that. The magic here, the key is how are you choosing to respond between the stimulus and the response? That's where you want to be. Open that space, make it wide and stand in there. Because sometimes you're going to say, hmm, oh my God, did you see that guy cut you off? Hmm. Oh my God, they did that. They did what? Hmm. Some might say that's the pacifist and that's someone that's weak-minded and not in their masculine and whatever. Hmm. Point being is between the stimulus and the response, when you make that space big, you get a choice. And now you get to exercise that choice. It's not what's happening, it's how you choose to respond that counts. It's not the difficulty, it's not the problem, it's not the challenge, it's how you're choosing to respond to it that counts. Wise person takes responsibility for that choice. Now, Mercury retrograde in Aries, a new path beckons, right? A new path, a new way is beckoning humanity now to evolve, a new way to open up. How are you going to choose to respond? Are you going to choose to respond how you're being programmed by this system to respond? How you're being programmed by the media, by the government, by your peers, by your education, by your family? Are you going to choose to continue to respond that way? Or are you going to exercise your free will and choice and choose a different way? How you choose to respond through this next 30, well, 21 days or so, it's 3 weeks, Mercury retrograde. That's what counts. That, through whatever's going to happen in this next 3 week period and beyond, that is going to fully put you on a different course, a different trajectory. Okay. And sometimes it's something so small and minuscule. You know, when you plot a course and you're out in the ocean, if you're 1 degree off, you end up in a completely different place. Why? Because that small 1 degree change here in the now makes all the difference later on. So it's not about being in apprehension of what could happen or couldn't happen and what's going to happen. It's none of that. It's just letting go and just going, you know what? Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. Is it going to personally affect me? Maybe, maybe not. Is what's happening in my personal life personally affecting me? Absolutely. So how are you choosing to show up? How are you responding? You make that 1 little degree shift or pivot, you end up in a new place. You want to evolve, you want to grow, you want to empower yourself to create the life on your terms. You want to free yourself from this fucking toxic and destructive matrix. You have to make the choice to do that, irrespective of what's going on around you. Now's the time. Mercury retrograde is a perfect opportunity just to pull back a little bit and create some breathing space. And when you feel a little overwhelmed, a little anxious, and a little bit fired up, breathe. Get your feet on this earth. Stand. And sometimes the best action is no action at all. That's my Mercury retrograde video. I hope you enjoyed it. Peace out.